Welcome everyone once again to our regular weekly show on YouTooSpain. I'm Skatz, and today I'll be talking to Alistair from Smart Currency Exchange, all about making the most of your money when you're exchanging currency and moving your money to Spain or anywhere else in Europe for that matter. As usual, we'll be answering all of your questions and comments from social media, from the live chat, and from the comments below about today's topic. If you're watching the recording of the show, you can find the time codes and chapter headings for each of the answers you need in the video description below, once I've put them there, which is usually on the same day. So, welcome to YouTooSpain. Cue the music. Have a little boogie. Oh yeah, that's groovy. Now, very quickly, before I introduce our expert guest, you can thank us for the help you get today by buying me a coffee via the link in the video description below. You can also find that link on YouTooSpain.com, which is our brand new website, packed with loads of information and articles and all the links you need to help you move to Spain. So you can join that community. The address for that is below too, along with some very other helpful links to where you can get discounts on lots of things that you need, including getting the best currency exchange help from Smart Currency Exchange, so you can maximize your money in Spain. And if you use that link, you'll be helping YouTooSpain, and it won't cost you a penny. And once again, we'll be having some prizes to give away for the best questions and comments from you. And I'm just going to show you a picture from one of our winners. This is John Nelson, all the way over in New Zealand. His Upsticks prizes have arrived. Two lovely soft squidgy, I say squidgy, they're really made of like a felt material. They're really nice. I've got loads of my documents in them. So there we go. Let's get rid of that now. Brilliant. So without further ado, let's meet my guests for the day. It's Alistair Hudson from Smart Currency Exchange. Good morning, Alistair.
Morning, Skatz. How are you?
Very good, thanks. And you?
Very, very well, thank you.
It's Semana Santa over here in Spain, and so the picture behind me is one I took last night just as the sun was going down and the drums were starting up on one of the parades. The very first parade, I didn't realise it starts on the Friday before, so the whole of this week and more past Easter Sunday is parades and music and everything going through the town, so it's all exciting. There you go. So just before we get into the questions, I just want to make it clear to our viewers, I do have an affiliation with Smart Currency Exchange, as you probably tell from the number of times I've mentioned it in the intro. You've already heard me talk about the link that gives YouTooSpain a commission, but that doesn't mean I'm going to turn this show into one big advert. I think we can still be objective. You'll still get great advice from Alistair, and you can judge for yourself by the quality of that advice, and you'll realise why I don't mind giving them a plug. And I think they're great. Use the link to get yourself a free, no obligation account. So, Alistair, let's start by you telling us a bit about what Smart Currency Exchange is all about and what is your expertise, so we know we can trust your knowledge.
Absolutely. So, Smart Currency Exchange was founded in 2004. We're a business that is specifically focused on helping individuals move their money from one currency to another, wherever that may be, as you mentioned, Europe or beyond. And our sole purpose in life is to help people understand the potential risks that they face when transferring money overseas, specifically currency risk, and to take the pain and challenges out of the transfer world. There are lots of confusing terminologies. There are lots of hidden charges that the banks can levy, and it can be quite a daunting process. So we're here as a specialist to take that away and make sure that it's a smooth process as it should be. Myself, I've been in foreign exchange for just over 8 years now. I've always worked with private clients, so regular transfers for things like mortgages and pensions, property purchases, property sales, anything to do with foreign currency is my remit.
Excellent, thank you for that. I imagine the question you get asked the most is, so what's going to happen to exchange rates in the next 6 months? And what I want to know is, where do you keep your crystal balls?
I've got a drawer full of them. So it's a really good question. We get asked it all the time, and we're very, very quick to come back and say there is no prediction. You can find articles online with all the various investment banks who employ the brightest minds in the land, with as many screens as you could stack up, and each of them will have a very different view on where they think the currency world is going to go. And over the last 5-6 years, as everyone will have known, there's been so many political events, economic events that have caught the market off guard, and that has created a huge amount of uncertainty. So what you're looking at here is the sterling euro graph going back to just before 2017. Again, if people are transferring money regularly between the UK and Europe, you will know that sterling euro has been trading between a relatively tight range, with 120 at the top end and around 106, 107 at the bottom end. That represents, it's just shy of 13% as a range from top to bottom, which, when you think about it, across a year worth of transfers or a property purchase, a 13% change in the exchange rate is fairly significant. And this is why it's very, very important when you're thinking about your transfers that you have a currency strategy in place. Now, that might sound like a bit of an odd thing to say. Most people probably won't have a currency strategy in place, but that's where we come in to sit down with our clients and understand how much do they need to move, how often do they need to move it, what have they budgeted? So is the exchange rate today a level that you've budgeted in the past, or is it a completely new level for you to work on? And as an example, if you're planning to buy a house when the rates are at 120 and 6 months later the rates are at 107, you've now got a 12.5% increase in the cost of your property just because of the exchange rate. So it's really about understanding the risks that you could be exposed to, trying to understand where your budgets fit into that conversation, and then allowing us to build a conversation around that.
It was really interesting to see on that graph. I've taken it off the screen now, but the effect that, for a start, well, that was from 2017, but it was already on a downward spiral after the Brexit vote. And then it started to creep up, and it was actually the big downward peak was towards the election. It climbed dramatically, and it's not all about these political goings on, but that had a big effect on it. And then the next drop was when COVID kind of took over, and it's been gradually kind of on the climb since then. But even then, there are peaks and troughs which can affect you by a couple of percent, which is a lot, isn't it? When you're buying a house, for example.
It is, and the recent events with Ukraine and Russia was a great example of something completely geopolitical coming in and creating uncertainty in the markets, not just the financial markets with stocks and shares, but the currency world as well. So there will always be something to move the markets, and as you just said, the last few years have been full of them. And it's really, really important that when you are moving money overseas, you really understand where those thresholds may come in to affect your budget, because it does make a difference to people, especially the smaller regular transfers as well. They often get forgotten about, but people may be transferring funds every month. And if you were to do that from the top to the bottom over 12 months, you've lost 12% across the year, which for a lot of people can be that's an unfavourable circumstance to find yourself in.
And we'll touch on that when we talk about pensions a little bit later on briefly. So I think I know the answer to this next question from experience. So what are the differences and advantages of using a currency exchange company like Smart rather than the banks or the self-serve platforms like Revolut or Wise?
It's a really good question. So for us, it's all about the personal service. Customers that come to work with us at Smart Currency have a unique circumstance or a unique story to tell, whether it's buying a property, moving small funds over for a mortgage, and each person that works with us is assigned a currency trader. That currency trader is based in London. They will sit down with you and they will take you through a consultation process to really understand what you're looking to do and provide you with as much guidance as they can to make sure that you have the best outcome. And they really are there as your concierge service. One of the other key areas that they offer is the expertise within the banking world. The Spanish banking system can be very difficult to navigate. There are lots of things like banking fees, receiving charges, even just the terminology that gets used to make a transfer can be quite confusing. our trading team in London are experts in these payments, and they will really be able to give you several different options to mull over or to think about. And once you've made a decision on what's right for you, they will be there to help press the button. The bank's level of service is so inconsistent. I can say that confidently over 8 years of working in this world. You may get a good service one day, but if you try and use them again the following week, you may get a completely different set of services. So it's very, very inconsistent. And that's just generally down to their nature. They are enormous organizations with tens of thousands of staff. They aren't specialists in currency. They offer a whole range of products. You find yourself speaking to someone at Smart Currency, you quickly realize that our entire world is international payments, and we've been working over the last 15, 16 years to make sure that we are specialists in that, and that we can add as much value as possible. You mentioned some of the self-serve platforms as well. Lots of companies over the last few years have popped up on the radar. They are all about technology. They've had lots of investments from crowdfunding. However, their model is all around self-servicing. It's all about, here's a product, log in, transfer money, which is great in some cases. However, there are times when you would like to speak to someone on the phone. There are times when you'd like to run some ideas past someone, or take advantage of some of the tools that can be used in the foreign exchange world. And those aren't available with the self-serve platforms. So it's finding that sweet spot between what the banks offer at the basic end, and then you've got the self-serve platforms, and then you've got us in the middle, where you have that consultative hand-holding conversation from start to finish.
Let me just drop in a question from somebody on social media. It actually only came in this morning, so I should have warned you this one was coming in. Ty Johnson says that this should be a very short video. Use Wise, the money transfer specialist overcharge. I once used exchange specialists, but when I said I was using Wise, and can they beat them? They dropped me like a stone. What do you think?
It's an interesting question. So TransferWise, or as they rebranded Wise, they have a very cheap pricing model. However, that pricing model does not reflect any form of interaction with a specialist. So you are self-serving. If you want to use the services of an expert, similar to perhaps a mortgage broker, an insurance specialist, there has to be a level of premium with that. So this conversation here that's being had is, can you offer me a telephone brokerage service that matches the pricing of a self-serve online platform? And most businesses, the answer would be no, simply because the level of service is different. If we were to try and reduce our prices to match someone like Wise, but also offer a telephone service, the two are getting very, very blurred. So we always have that conversation. We're very honest with people. If you would like to self-serve and do this yourself, then that platform would be very suitable. However, if you would like to sit down and speak to one of our experts and perhaps start to look at some of the more sophisticated tools like forward contracts, then let's have that conversation, and we can work together.
Yes, good answer. I mean, I've got a Wise card myself, as well as using Smart Currency Exchange, and I mean it's handy for if I'm popping over to the UK, just convert some to pounds on my card, and very easy, very quick. And if it's a small amount, it's not time consuming at all, and you don't necessarily need an expert for that kind of transaction. Yeah. So you talked about the tools that are available. What are those tools to get the best out of changing currency?
So the main one that we use, and probably won't be familiar to a lot of people, is a forward contract. A forward contract was originally set up in the foreign exchange world to help businesses buy the currency they might need for the year ahead and allow them to budget accordingly. As we just saw, a 13% change in sterling euro over the last 5 years can make a significant impact on people's affordability and their budgets. So the forward contract is a fantastic tool for individuals to purchase currency that they might need over a future period. So effectively, it's a buy now, pay later type product. Very, very good example is people in the property space. We have clients come to us saying, I'm about to put an offer in a property in Spain. We have a rough 6-month time period that we need to work towards. During that 6-month period, if we don't purchase our euros, we are completely exposed to the exchange rate fluctuations. It may go up, It may go down. We can't control that, neither can we, sadly, but it gives them the opportunity to purchase the euros they need and take delivery of them in 3 to 6 months' time. And in order to execute that, they will put down somewhere between a 5 and 10% down payment or a deposit, like you would with any sort of credit facility. And then in 3 to 6 months' time, when you're ready, you give us a call and transfer over the balance of your contract, and your euros that you bought 6 months ago will be paid to your lawyer or to your Spanish account. So that tool is not available with the self-serve platforms. It's not available with the banks. It is a specialist tool that companies like Smart Currency can offer private clients. It is beautifully simple, and it helps people manage their budgets over a period of time.
Excellent. Any other tools available?
There's a few other ones, even simpler. So rate alerts. Rate alerts are a trigger. So when you speak to one of our currency traders, they'll sit down with you and work out, okay, what levels are attracted to you, what levels work for you, and we'll make sure that when those levels are available, you're well aware of it. The currency markets move very, very quickly. The rate that's available, on Friday afternoon may not be available again for another 2 months. We don't know. So rate alerts are very, very important. We also send out daily commentary. So we write a morning briefing, which gives everyone a feel for what's happening in the markets, what events may lead to volatility. And we also let customers do an order to buy. So an order to buy is a request to buy currency at a certain rate. So for example, customers say to us, we need to buy a car in Spain. We're going to transfer 20,000 euros. We would like an exchange rate of 1.19 in order to make that transfer. Now, once we've had that conversation, that customer is going to go about their normal week. They're probably not going to think about currency again, but we are. So we'll say to them, well, if we can get 1.19 for you, we will automatically buy those euros. And once that's done, we'll give you a call to confirm the contract, because the markets move throughout the week. And it may happen at 6 o'clock in the morning. It may happen at 10 o'clock at night. The order to buy is an algorithm. So as soon as the level is available, it'll buy the currency for you. And that's a really effective tool. We use it all the time with customers, particularly if they're not quite ready to transfer and they're looking for a specific rate. It allows us to make sure we get that for them when it's available.
Excellent. I'd just like to say good morning on the live chat to Phil Quantrill. Morning from Phil and Kimberly. Morning from Ant from France. Anthony and Kerry, going to meet them one day. And Steve Knowles, good morning. And Chris Aiken, good morning. And Alan Lackenby. There's loads of our regulars all on there. Thanks for joining us. And also one from my wife. Here we go. She's sitting in the garden. Morning all, sitting in our garden under the gorgeous Spanish sunshine. Sorry, not sorry, she says. Lovely. So yes, tell us a bit about how international payments work and what options people have.
Yeah, so on the face of it, it should be really obvious. You want to move money from one country to another. Sadly, it's not that easy to navigate. Your funds will likely be in a sterling bank account with perhaps a high street bank. To get that money to Spain, you're either going to have to call the bank and sit through maybe 2 to 5 minutes of hold and figure out where you need to go. You may be able to use your banking platform, but again, quite often they'll challenge you and get you to call in to go through additional security. So the concept is simple. You've got funds in the UK in a sterling account. You need to get them over to Spain. You need to create an international transfer. There are two main methods of doing that. And again, we're starting to get into the sort of the technical terms here. People will probably be familiar with SEPA, the Single European Payment Association, or SWIFT, which are the two main methods of moving funds from one country to another. Where Smart Currency fits into this as a specialist, we have our own currency accounts with Barclays. So a customer will call us and say, "I'd like to move money to Spain." We'll provide them with an exchange rate, and they'll say, "Yes, please. That's great." We will then confirm the amounts that we're buying for them on the phone, and we will email them a contract after the telephone call has ended. That contract has an account number and a sort code and a reference number, which is unique to that client. They will log into their bank account and they will transfer the money into our client account. Once it's received, the reference number is allocated to the euros we bought, and the euros will be paid to the specified account that they have provided with us, which is normally same day. And payments going into Spain, as I just referenced, will always be paid via SEPA. some of you have probably had the pains of getting charged by your bank to receive money into your Spanish account. It could range from €9. It could range up to €25. It does vary massively depending on what kind of mood the bank is in. But sending it via SEPA and also sending it out of our non-UK Euro bank accounts will make sure that those funds arrive without any fees, which is a big help in the long term.
Excellent. Are there any common problems that people face with currency?
I think the main one for us, or certainly the main one that that I've seen over the last 8 years, is people underestimating what their budget is. It's always the piece that gets overlooked, and it's such a key part of the conversation we have with clients. And quite often, when we ask the question, we get silence back. What's your budget for this transfer? People say, well, I don't have a budget. I need to move money to Spain. However, at some point in time, that particular customer would have looked at the exchange rates. Perhaps they saw them on the news or on Google or Yahoo Finance, and they've seen a particular level, and that level will stick in their head. So they're thinking, right, well, if I need to move £15,000 today, I know I should be roughly getting 19,000 euros. However, when they come to actually do the transfer with us, we'll provide them with a quote, and it will be vastly different to what they had in their head. So that's why the budget piece is so important. And yes, you're right. For the really small transfers, it's not going to make a huge difference. However, as those transfers start to increase in value, it is really important to ask yourself the question, what is our budget for this transfer? Have we got a strategy around it? And what could we do to make sure that we maximize our efforts to reduce unnecessary costs? And for us, unnecessary costs are that exchange rate mechanism. As we've just seen on the charts, 13% change in the exchange rates is a huge percentage difference. So that is one of the common challenges people face, and it's trying to get their head around the mechanism, trying to really understand how does my budget affect my particular transfer, and what can I do about it? And that's where we come in to work with clients. You mentioned it earlier. The accounts that clients open with us are free to open. The advice that you'll get from a currency trader is completely free. If you feel that that's going to create value and be the right service for you, then fantastic. You can use our service, but there's certainly no obligation to use the account, and there's absolutely no upfront cost. So that would be my summary of the main challenges people face. I think also probably worth mentioning just the terminology as well. I've referenced it a couple of times. The currency world loves confusing terminology. You'll hear people talking about spot transfers, or people are hedging, and there's all kinds of terminology out there which can make the whole thing seem very, very over-engineered. And that's one of our main aims, is to really try and take away all of that terminology. And when we speak to a customer, we have a very simple set of requirements to figure out how much you need to move, when does it need to be there, what level have you budgeted, and what else can we help with, and we go from there.
Excellent. Anthony says, great, you've just answered my question, Ray SEPA. Thank you. That's from Anton Kerry.
A quick point on that. So the again, I don't want to attack the Spanish banks too much. However, the UK post Brexit still remains in the SEPA network. However, a lot of the Spanish banks have now used that as an opportunity to say, yes, the UK is still in the SEPA network, but we're going to class it as a non-euro transfer, which is a very clever way of kind of reverse engineering that and saying we're going to charge you a receiving fee. So for our payments into Spain, they go out of a German Barclays Euro account, and they don't attract any fees at the receiving end.
My son actually had a problem sending. He was actually sending cash to me. It normally goes the other way, so lucky me. But he found that my IBAN on the Spanish bank had more digits than the Irish bank one, so it didn't work putting in my IBAN, and he found he couldn't send the money.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen that before.
I'm based in London, so fortunately for us, we use account numbers and sort codes. When you get used to IBANs and you see how many digits there are, it's very easy to potentially add an extra zero or a character in there. And as soon as you try and plug that into the banking system, you'll get you'll get an error. So on our platform, we have IBAN and Swift code checkers, which will make sure that they validate the information before any payments go out. Because I think that's probably everyone's worst fear, sending funds to the wrong place. Actually, to that point, referencing back to someone like a TransferWise and perhaps a Revolut, if you ever go into their FAQs, one of their most frequently asked questions is, what happens if I send money to the wrong place? Now, because of their setup, their self-serve nature, they don't offer an account management service. And the answer is, if you've made a payment to the wrong place, then you need to organize with the beneficiary how you will refund the money. Now, that's all good and well if you sent it to someone that you know, but if it's gone to the wrong place, then it's down to you to get the funds back. You compare that to somewhere at Smart, where we have a full concierge service. Recalls and trying to get payments back from perhaps an incorrect account is part of our world. We have a specific team which work with the banking network to recall payments. We work with the bank to make sure that we do everything we can to get those funds back for customers, because it does happen. Mistakes are made. Clients might provide us with an old account or potentially an invoice that's got different details on, whatever it might be. We will work hard to make sure those funds come back.
Excellent. That's a service that nobody else can do, I should think. Ant says, sure, I ask for my second question. What are your charges?
Good question. So in terms of physical charges, there is nothing. So to use a transfer with smart currency, it doesn't cost anything. Our business model or our revenue model is built into the exchange rates. So if you look on perhaps someone like Yahoo Finance, you will be able to see what's known as a mid-market rate, exactly the same as the stock market. If you wanted to buy Google shares, you can see the mid-market rate on Google. If you called up a broker to buy those shares, you will be given a slightly different share price. It's exactly the same in the world of currency. And it depends entirely on the complexity of what you're looking to do, the volumes that you're transferring. But that's something the trader will speak to you about when you open the accounts, so that all the expectations are clear on pricing and costs.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Next. Like, in any advice when selling one house and a delay in buying in Spain? What's the best place to hold the money in the interim, maybe a month or so, and several £100,000?
Okay, that's interesting. So if I'm reading that correctly, that may be there's two ways to look at that. So potentially a house sale in the UK, which is being used to fund a property in Spain. So you've got a chain effectively. And it's a chain. I was going to say change yourself. That's probably not the right way to put it, but it's very common. And to, again, go straight back to that point around budgets. So you may be at this point in time within budget. The property in Spain, the offer's gone through, and you're waiting to advance that. The property in the UK isn't selling as quickly as you'd like, and now the exchange rates start to drop. Then you're stuck in a really difficult situation. In terms of the best place to hold money, it's a really good question. I don't think I'd be able to provide any sort of investment advice with that respect, because as long as it's within a high street bank, then you're relatively safe, so to speak. However, what I would say is if you're buying a place and this money is intrinsic to that purchase, you need to have a think about something like a forward contract. Forward contract doesn't require all the funds up front, but allows you to purchase your euros for a date in the future. So, for example, on the amounts you've referenced there, your deposit payment would be around £10,000 to take out a forward contract. That leaves the rest of your cash sat in a bank account somewhere, earning some form of interest before you make the move to transferring it over to Spain.
And if you agree that forward contract, they can, if it's with you, then they can ask for that money anytime once they need it to purchase the house in Spain.
Yeah, so the currency trader will purchase the currency for you on a specific day. However, it is flexible, so that conversation will be had. As everyone knows, I don't think in the history of real estate has a property ever completed on the specific day it was set to. So there's always going to be some slight movement, but the trader will have that conversation with the client when they book the forward contract. So if you need it early, or if there are delays, then that's absolutely fine. That can be dealt with. The most important thing is there is no volatility, there is no repricing, there's no exchange rate movement. The funds that you need are bought and they're sat in a bank account under your reference number, and then you send over your balance payment and we will pay them off to wherever they need to go.
Excellent. Question from Alan then. Sorry about the barking dogs in the background. The neighbour's dog is having a right go, but no worries. Alan says, hi, can you lock in a 1.2 rate and deposit £20,000, then set up a direct debit to a Spanish account to send over €1,000 a month?
Yeah, you absolutely can. So if 120 was an available exchange rate, this sounds like a very typical recurring transfer that we do all the time. So we would convert. There's a couple of ways to do it. We would convert the £20,000 into euros at 120. That will then create a euro balance with smart currency, and then we can schedule a recurring payment which goes into your Spanish bank on a specific day each month. So you have got to call it a standing order. You could also do it slightly differently. You could set up a series of fixed transfers. Let's say, for example, you needed €1,000 in your Spanish account each month. You would be able to purchase €12,000 split into one a month with smart currency, and then you would set up a standing order into our client's account with your reference number on each month. Once the funds come in, they then trigger that euro payment to go out the other way. So it can be structured a few different ways, but what's been asked there is very, very feasible and something that gets done quite a lot, especially after a property purchase. So the big transfer goes through, and then we're sorting out the recurring payments in the background, whether it be for pensions or mortgages.
Okay, but talking about pensions, let's pop that one in now. If obviously with a pension you don't get 20,000 in the bank, you get something every month anyway. How do you maximize what you get through in Spain with a pension?
So again, it all comes back to that budget level. So with smaller regular transfers, using a forward contract to purchase perhaps 12 months worth of currency will give you all the certainty you need to know what you're receiving in Spain. If you don't do that, then that's okay. It doesn't have to be done that way. You are then just running the gauntlet of where the exchange rates go. So you might be budgeting, right, we're going to have €1,500 roughly transferred to our Spanish account each month. That's based on the exchange rate today. So in 6 months' time, if we saw sterling euro drop back to 110, that €1,500 payment that you need will be costing you an additional £250 in the UK, which over the course of a year adds up. So I think it's just really important that you have that conversation with yourself or whoever's involved. Have a look at whether a forward contract for a year is going to give you that certainty, or potentially even just doing it a quarter at a time. So I've talked about a forward contract for a year. It doesn't have to be that period of time. You could do it 3 months at a time or a quarter at a time to give you that certainty for 3 months, and then you can reassess. And that's quite often a strategy that clients use. I can see a question. I can see a question from Steve Knowles, which is exactly around that strategy piece. So you've got sort of two options. Option A is you buy all the currency up front, and then you transfer it when you need it. You could argue if you do that, yes, you're removing all of the exchange rate risk. However, perhaps the currency markets may improve over that 6 month period. You might sit there and think, okay, the property will be slightly cheaper now. So for some customers, depending on their risk appetite, they would purchase currency in smaller chunks over a period of time, and that way they are hoping to average out a slightly more favorable exchange rate. There is no right or wrong way to do it. As long as you're aware of where your budgets are and what you can and can't afford, the traders at Smart Currency will sit down with you and try and work out the best strategy. But that's a really good question, and again, we see it all the time. We had a client last week buying a property in Casada in Costa Blanca. They've purchased 3/4 of the property value using a forward contract. The other quarter, they are going to purchase down the road. They don't have a requirement to buy it just yet. They're happy that the amount they've taken off the table fits within their budgets, and they've got a bit of time to play with. So very personal situation to them, and one that we're more than happy to facilitate.
Great. Managed to mute my microphone there. The dogs are having a right go outside. Never mind. Alan says thanks for the information. And can you only have a contract for 12 months?
It can extend longer. 24 months or 2 years would be our outer limit. Most clients book for 12 months at a time. It seems to be a natural time period to kind of utilize. Then they'll reset whatever their requirements are. But certainly in some cases, we have clients that will book an exchange rate for 2 years. And going back to that chart we saw at the beginning, sterling euro for the last 5 years hasn't really gone much higher than 120. We've had a couple of skirmishes above 120 for maybe a day or two, but if you look at the average exchange rates for sterling euro for the last 5 years have been around that 115, 116 mark. So for some people, a 12-month or a 2-year forward contract at 120 is a great place to be. It's a really attractive level for them. And again, we can have that conversation.
Yeah, it's only when you go back on, I've seen the exchange rates for about the last 10 years. There was a 1.45 at one point, which was, and then it's been down, like you say, on an average of 1.15 since then.
I don't want to rub it into anyone, but I remember, I think I was probably a year into working in foreign exchange, and I helped a client they were buying a canal barge from the Netherlands, and I remember the exchange rate they got was about 144. And the next day, there was an announcement from David Cameron saying that there was going to be a Brexit vote. And from that point, as you saw on the chart, for the next 6 months, we just had a continued downfall in the exchange rates, all the way to the lowest point that I certainly remember for a long time, which was the initial COVID pandemic in March, April. Sterling euro was as close to parity as it's ever been. 106, 105. And if you were to go to a high street bank and ask them for an exchange rate, you would have been offered 1-to-1, which again, for a lot of people is quite a scary concept. When you've got places like Spain offering fantastic value for property, to then have to purchase it at 1-to-1, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I'm glad those days are behind us, but it is a useful reminder for people when they're looking at budgets, particularly property, just to have a think about, okay, worst case scenario, if the market went to 110 next week, can we still afford the property? If the answer is no, then let's have a conversation and see whether we can provide you with a strategy that will help remove that.
I wonder if David Cameron told all his mates the day before he was going to make that announcement, just sell now, just before, because it's going to plummet.
Yeah, trust me on this. I've got a good feeling it's going to go down.
Yeah. So Anthony was asking about UK state pension. If paid directly into an EU bank account, have heard the UK government doesn't send it using SEPA, so incurs the non-euro fees. Any thoughts on how to avoid this?
That's a very common situation. And absolutely, I have no doubt that the payments that come out of their banking platform, of which they'll be making hundreds of thousands every week, will be going through the path of least resistance, and you will be getting charged at the other end. We get a lot of pension transfers through smart currency. There's a couple of ways you could navigate this. Your pension provider or the state pension, you can, if you still have a UK bank account available, you could effectively set up a double direct debit. So the state pension comes into a UK bank account in your name. As soon as it arrives, you then automatically direct debit or forward it to smart currency in sterling. As soon as we receive it, we will convert it into euros for you, either at the prevailing exchange rate, or perhaps you might have taken out a recurring forward contract, and then we will transfer it to your Spanish account via SEPA from our German euro account to make sure that it arrives without fees. And to that point, I was chatting to a client a couple of weeks ago, and they'd been back through their statements, and they were being charged on average 18 euros per transfer. If you add up that over the course of 1 or 2 years with multiple transfers, it's a pretty significant cost, and certainly one that we can remove very easily. If you're able to, some pension providers will let you transfer the funds directly into to someone like Smart Currency. However, just so everyone's aware, they often won't, because we have client accounts. They are not specifically in your name. It's a client account in the name of Smart Currency. For them, that may flag up as an issue, and they'll say, unfortunately, you need to have it transferred through to your own personal bank account. There is a workaround. We can provide you with a statement letter which confirms your account with us. It confirms your client reference number, your account number, and your sort code. You can often provide that to them and say, the reason why I'm requesting you to transfer it to Smart Currency is they are my currency specialist. Here is a letter to confirm that, and that may be enough to allow them to tick the box. But it is done on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, that's very good to know. And by the way, everybody who's asking questions, when you start up, I'm not going to say if, when you start up your Smart Currency exchange account, make sure you go through the link that's below this video, or it's also available on the YouTooSpain.com website, and that way you'll be helping YouTooSpain. And there you go. So next question, Colin is saying, good morning. In British banks, you're protected up to £85,000 by FSCS. Does that apply to money held by your company?
It's a really good question, and one we get asked a lot. So just to take a couple of steps back. So Smart Currency is still privately owned. We've been in business for a long time now, since 2004. Our books are available to review online, and we've got a very strong balance sheet, which is very, very important. The next phase on from there is how a company in our space is regulated and authorized by the Financial Conduct Authority. If you wish to operate in the space that we operate in, and you want to hold client money, you have to have a level of ring fencing and client account status protection. These client accounts make up zero part of the working capital of Smart Currency. They are specifically designed to hold client money, deposits or transfers, and that's with Barclays Bank in the UK. So in the event of an insolvency situation, the funds that are in the client account can only be used to pay for a transfer back to the client or return to the customer. They are not part of the business fund. They're not operating costs. They're not used to pay salary or rent or anything along those lines. They are specifically there for client purposes, and they will be returned to the source that they came from. So to answer the question directly, the Financial Services Compensation Scheme doesn't apply to foreign exchange companies, because we aren't classed as an institution that will be covered. However, the most important thing is that we have client accounts that your money is kept in between the point of transferring it to us and it being paid out over to Spain. We have a lot more information on that in terms of the technicalities that our traders will send, because it's a really good question to ask. And quite often, if a client doesn't ask us, we'll send them a security document, which just gives them that peace of mind around where their money is sitting and how it is protected.
Sounds like it's protected up to infinity in that case, because they must get the money back.
So anyone that's transferred money to and from Portugal, you will have you may have heard about Premier FX a few years ago. They went insolvent overnight following the death of one of the directors, and it was apparent that the company had not been using client accounts despite what they had promised, and that's left a lot of people in the lurch. And there's been an enormous investigation into how that can happen. So it's really, really important that when you deal with a company in the currency space, you understand what their client account setup is. And a lot of this information is available online as well, especially things like the finances of the company. So again, any questions along those lines, speak to our currency experts. They'll be able to give you as much information as they can to put your mind at ease.
Excellent. That's all of the questions from the side there on the chat. Is there anything we haven't covered there? What's the process people can expect to go through when they're wanting to transfer money with you? I think you've mentioned a lot of it, but anything else?
Probably just worth mentioning the account opening process. So again, I referenced the FCA. We are, as an international payment business, governed by very strict know your client protocol. So if you want to open an account with us, you can use the link that's in the video, or you can go to YouTooSpain website, follow the link on there. You'll then fall into our registration form, which takes about a minute and a half to complete. It's the usual stuff: name, date of birth, where you live. Depending on where you are, we use electoral roll checkers to verify your identity, but you may need to provide a passport photograph or a proof of address. Once you've done that, the onboarding team will then transfer you through and they'll book a welcome call with our currency trader. So they will find out when you're free and you'll have a 30-minute welcome call with a trader. They will then sit down with you and work out more or less all the things we've covered over the last half an hour and present to you the best course of action for you to take.
Excellent. Earlier in the week, we were talking about the best practices for international payments. Tell our viewers about that.
So I think we've covered them really well. So hopefully everyone that's watching this now will have a slightly better grasp on what's achievable. I think really be aware of what potential bank charges that you're getting hit with. So many customers have come to us and they've almost accepted that Euro SEPA fee is a way of life. It isn't. So have a look at your bank accounts. Make sure you're not getting charged. If you are, have a conversation with us. Have a think about the next 12 months. How much money do you need to transfer over the next 12 months? If it's a property and it's a large transfer, it's really important that you have a conversation with us about your currency strategy and your budget. I think that for me would be the two key areas that people really need to kind of understand and appreciate and leverage us for that conversation. I've mentioned it already a couple of times, but the currency traders have such great conversations with our clients, and we love finding out what people's reasons for transfers are and talking to them about their journey. Especially the chat we're in now, moving to Spain, is such an exciting journey. The currency piece can often get forgotten about. It sits quite low down in the pecking order in terms of everything else, but we're here to make sure that as much focus and energy goes into it as anything else would, like your property, your mortgage, your healthcare. So yeah, that's probably the most common best practices that people need to work on or certainly consider.
Great. So that's all of the questions we've got. Unless you can think of anything else that we haven't mentioned.
I feel like that's a pretty good covering. Just to go back and really echo the point around the banking fees. Each individual branch in Spain can dictate the receiving fee term. So you may think that you've got everything sussed out now. In a few months, that may change. That space is always evolving. The banks are always under new guidelines. I think there probably will be some further changes to the way the UK and Europe operate from a transfer perspective over the next 1 to 2 years. So keep an eye out on your bank accounts. Just make sure you're not getting charged for receiving payments. And if you are, we'd love to have a conversation about how we can make sure that they're removed. Great.
So we need to give out a prize. This is again donated by Upsticks. Who should we give a prize to this week? Lots of these people on the chat have already had prizes. Have we? As Phil Quantrill, have you had a prize yet? I presume you're still with us on the chat there. If you haven't, then get in touch with us. Not on the live chat. Don't give your address on there, but either in the comments below if you want to make it public, or via the YouTooSpain community Facebook group. Join up with that, and then you can send me a private message. Or there's a YouTooSpain page as well, or via the YouTooSpain.com website. There's lots of ways to get in touch. Phil Quantrill says, whoopee. There we go. And there's your cat, Alistair.
I knew it was going to happen. He's done very well. He's resisted the temptation to sit on the laptop for the best part of an hour, and now the urge is the urge is uncontrollable.
I saw the door open earlier and just creaked too. I thought, no, that's a cat coming through. There we go. So Phil Quantrill, you're our prize winner for this week. Yes, get in touch with us. And so before I tell you all what's happening next week, let's all say a big thank you to Alistair. It's been a hoot.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. And maybe we'll have you on again soon. I'll chat to you during the week. Okay.
Thanks, Skatz. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Bye now. There we go. So on next week's show, what are we talking about? We are talking about, we're with Chris from Upsticks, and we'll be following on from what we did last week, which is the big overview of exactly how much it costs to move to Spain. And that overview was really extensive, really comprehensive. We'll be narrowing it down and looking at particular areas on that. We may be talking about cars, all about driving in Spain, bringing a car into Spain, everything surrounding that. I think that's the topic. If you have a particular topic within that, what you're going to spend money on, that you want to hear about urgently, then get in touch and maybe we can bring that forward. It's Easter Saturday, next Saturday, so we may be talking a little bit about Easter and Semana Santa. I'll announce it basically on to anybody who's a subscriber or in one of the Facebook groups or on the website. So lovely. So join us next week at our regular time of 9 o'clock if you're in the UK, 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe, or 4 o'clock in the morning if you're in Eastern Standard Time in New York. Don't forget to check out YouTube Yoga. Hello Liz, my wife. You can have free yoga and meditation classes there, and of course we have hoodies and t-shirts with the logo on, or with other slogans and other goodies like that, like socks. You can get YouTooSpain socks on our merchandise page. Don't forget to buy me a coffee on buymeacoffee.com/YouTube, or become a patron to support YouTooSpain. You can find a big button for that on the website. All of the links to those things you can find in the description below, including signing up to Smart Currency Exchange. That's all for this week. Thank you to everybody on the live chat over there. And oh, hello, Chris from Upsticks. Great live again, very informative. Thank you, Chris. Thanks to Alan Bates, Alan Lackenby, Bill Aitken, Chris Aitken, Phil Quantrill, Anson Kerry, Stephen Knowles, Colin Grinham. We've had Alan Lackenby already. Mike R. Hello, Mike R. That was just a very quick hello from him. I think that's just about everybody on the chat. And give us a wave, and don't forget to join up and click on subscribe, click on the bell, ding, all of that. That's all for this week. And we will see you very soon. Let's get back to the music. Get ready to dance. Bye for now.